I don't know how you can play in the NFL without faith. I truly don't, because it's tough, man. They're chewing on you from all sides, and your performance matters. And if you can internalize that and make it an important thing to you, you can make a huge difference in this world, regardless of your situation, regardless of your position, regardless of your opportunities.
I wanted to ask you about, one of your most inspiring conversations with John Elway. Karl Mecklenberg, what a treat to have you on the podcast. You were the 310th pick in the NFL draft, and you worked your you-know-what off to rise the ranks and become known widely as the most versatile player in the NFL. You played with Elway. You were a Denver Bronco and Colorado Hall of Famer, and now you're speaking to leaders across industries in the corporate world, to associations on universal principles, 6 universal principles to drive success, to create positive change. It is such a treat to have you. And what I'm excited about is I've heard you speak in person and you have the best stories. So I'm looking forward to digging into the principles and your stories. But first off, thank you for being here. And how's your morning going so far?
Good. Got the dog walked before it got too hot. Other than that, getting ready for this.
Can you give us a little bit of insight into your morning routine? I didn't expect to ask you about it, but maybe it was different when you're an NFL player, but I'm sure a morning routine is still critical for you to show up at your best.
It really is. What I try to do every morning is I get up, I do a little Bible study, and I think about who I'm going to run into that day, what my schedule is, how I can positively affect people. That's kind of the plan, and it really helps when situations arise where I can make a difference. I've already thought about it, and I can be decisive, and that's a huge piece of my success through the years, is that decisiveness.
Yeah, I remember you talked to us at the National Speakers Association about preparing to be courageous and decisive. And so we're going to get to that a little later in your 6 different principles. But I understand that faith is important to you and authenticity. And I'm a man of faith myself. And I think of my mother, who she'll pray to God in the morning in her prayer closet. God, let me bless someone today. Use me. And it seems like you're that type of person. So I was going to save this for the end, but these conversations flow organically, and we're here now. And the faith is a cornerstone for us. I know it is. So what role does faith in authentically expressing it, what role has that played in your life?
It's made a huge difference in my life. The pressure of being a professional football player, being constantly scrutinized, being, even if you're the best of the best, you only grade out 90% on film. 10% of the time you're wrong, and you have to be able to forgive yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. And I don't know how you do that if you don't know you've been forgiven. So for me, that part of it has just been huge. And things come up in life, things happen, and it's like, why does this happen? Why did I get injured? Why does my grandma or my stepmom have a hip surgery, or my mother-in-law have dementia, or all these things? And when you put them in eternal perspective, I think it's a lot easier to deal with it.
Yeah. Man, we're going to be hit by adversity in life. And you were taking literal hits in the physical realm as a football player. But I think of a period in my life where I had a depression in the pandemic, and that was a hard time for all of us. But to be able to surrender and give up in the best of ways, to trust in something greater than me, in God, it allowed me to find my way out of that depression. And so there's something about being able to surrender to something greater than us,
For sure. No question. And from a smaller standpoint, it's the same as working with a team. When your sacrifice ultimately helps others and helps the group move forward. So for me, that faith is huge. I don't know how you can play in the NFL without faith. I truly don't, because it's tough, man. They're chewing on you from all sides, and you've got to be okay with yourself making mistakes, and okay with your teammate making a mistake, and just try to do your best.
You've already kind of hit on it, but most human beings do not get to your level. So we cannot actually experience the level of pressure and difficulty and the glorious highs you must have experienced, man, when you're winning and succeeding. But you kind of already hit on it, but some of those difficult aspects of operating at the level that you did in the NFL?
Well, you got to be on every day. You've got to, you've got people relying on you. You've got people, and for me, it was an evolution. I like you said, I was the 310th pick of the draft, 20 guys away from Mr. Irrelevant, the last guy.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Hey, sometimes we're going to get distractions from the field, right? And I don't know if you get fans heckling you, but no worries at all. And this, I think it's a good metaphor, Karl, for throws at us, man. Like, here we are, we're in it. So, anyways, you were saying,
yeah. What was I saying? I was talking.
So I was talking about the most difficult aspects of operating at the NFL level, and also I imagine, you said people are counting on you. Right. Like I'm your big fan, and I'm a Packer fan. I don't know if I told you, but I get so emotionally invested. And you actually, let's say, if you were my team, as a kid, the way my week meant emotionally, I was so emotionally invested, I would be in a bad mood if the team lost. So some people are so emotionally in it, and they do that, they're counting on you in a way. I'm not saying that's healthy for a person to be so emotionally invested in their team that it impacts their whole week, but there is a pressure on you.
Oh, there definitely is. And there's press coverage, and there's teammates that, have incentives that are tied to your team performance. I mean, there's all this pressure, and to rise above it and do your best, regardless of the situation, regardless of the injury, regardless of the weather, regardless of the opponent. I think is a great metaphor for people dealing with families, people dealing with communities, people dealing with businesses. Your performance matters, and if you can internalize that and make it an important thing to you, you can make a huge difference in this world, regardless of your situation, regardless of your position, regardless of your opportunities. When those opportunities arise, you're going to be ready, and you go.
Oh, that gets me fired up, man. I feel like we're in the huddle on game day, and you're giving us a pep talk. Let's go. Yeah, you know what? I wanted to ask you about, one of your most inspiring conversations with John Elway, and just, maybe what that conversation was and how it shaped you.
Yeah, John was special. John was the first pick of the 1983 draft. We traded for him and got him there in Denver, and so I played my entire 12 years with John, and he was an unbelievable teammate. He would go out of his way to be involved with everybody on the team. We'd sit down at lunch, and our lunchroom was kind of like a middle school lunchroom, right? The same 5 kids sat at the same table every day, right? Except John. John would sit at a different table every day. And I asked him about it, and he said he needed to get to know his teammates, and he understood that to be a leader, you had to be connected. You had to know the strengths and weaknesses, and the interests, and the names, and the family of your teammates. That's how you build community. That's how you build family, and we were a family, and John was one of the, obviously one of the greatest players in NFL history, but what made him great was that we all cared about him, and he cared about us. So that was an important piece of it. The other thing, in my last game, we're playing in San Francisco. We had a terrible year. I only had 2 losing seasons in 12 years with the Broncos, and that was one of them. And it's the last game of the year. We're coming back from San Francisco. I'm sitting next to John. The way the seating's arranged on these flights is the coaches sit up front, and then the people that the coaches owe favors to, like politicians and car dealers and beer distributors and stuff. And then the players. Right. Then the players, youngest to oldest. John and I are the 2 oldest. We're in the very back of the plane. He's got an ice bag on his neck. He'd hurt his neck earlier that season, and even though we weren't going to the playoffs, he was playing. Our commitment to play for the Denver Broncos is we're here to win each game. That was clear. It was consistent. It was from the top. He had an ice bag on his knee. He had torn his ACL, his anterior cruciate ligament, in high school. And if you don't fix those, and they didn't know how to fix them back then, if you don't fix that, it dissolves and goes away. And you spend your whole rest of your life with a knee shifting back and forth, chewing up cartilage. So by the end of every season, his knee's a swollen mess. And he turns to me knowing I'm going to retire, and he says, "Karl, I'm jealous." But he followed that up within 5 seconds by saying, "But I can't quit. I've got to win a Super Bowl." And we played in 3 Super Bowls. I'd played in 3 Super Bowls with John, and we lost all 3, and we lost all 3 badly, and John took most of the blame. And even in his darkest moment, he knew exactly where he was going. It was clear. It was consistent. It was his passion. It was his mission. It wasn't, I got to break Dan Marino's passing records, although he did. It wasn't, I got to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, although he did. It was, I got to win a Super Bowl. So it was a huge thing. And it just reaffirmed my feelings about John. He was an unbelievable competitor and a great leader for our team.
Tech sales is an amazing career path where you can make as much as doctors and lawyers without having to cut anyone open or work ungodly hours. Looking back 10 years later, having personally started out in tech sales at Oracle, then moved to Google Cloud and a startup, and now fully launching into entrepreneurship, I can say with confidence that tech sales transformed my life through the income that it produced, the skill development, the connections, and the self-development that I unlocked along the journey. If you're someone who wants to strategically build your own 6-figure tech sales career without wasting valuable time and earnings potential, then consider Tech Sales Accelerator and our 12-week programs as your blueprint. Our partners are breaking in and crushing quota at top companies like Oracle, Google Cloud, VMware, and Salesforce, leveraging our in-depth video content, one-on-one coaching, community, and network access. And we'd love to partner with you too to accelerate your own success on this path. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Sales Accelerator and our programs, then feel welcome to book time at my Calendly link, linked in the description of this video, and we'll walk you through all the details. Or just download my free cold calling system that's going to help you crush the phones quickly, also linked in the description of this video. All right, let's get back to the episode.
So that story illustrates one of your key principles, doesn't it? And how do you call that principle? Because I know you've got, goal setting and dedication, and we're going to go through all of them, but what exact principle is being illustrated right there?
Yeah. Teamwork with leadership being the ultimate expression of teamwork. It's one thing to be a teammate, to show up every day. It's another thing to take accountability and take responsibility and make it a part of your decision making day to day. And John was unbelievable that way. He'd run with the wide receivers running routes, and he'd go to the bar with the offensive linemen, and he'd come to the Bible study, and he was everywhere. And wow. That's a sign of leadership for sure.
What were like a time or two where your vision, you knew where you were going, it was greater than your current circumstances? Like maybe I could assume that, your 310th pick, and you knew your vision was greater. You became that. And so I just want to inspire the folks out there that they're the dreamers, they're early in the tech sales path or in another industry or trying to be an entrepreneur, wherever they're at. Maybe there's a young kid that wants to be an NFL player like you. Okay, what was at least maybe one example where your vision was far greater than your circumstances?
Yeah, well, I started at the bottom. There's no question about it. I was a JV player as a junior in high school. I didn't even make the varsity team. I went to a Division II school on a 1/3 scholarship, which they took away after 2 years. So I left. I walked on at the University of Minnesota. I earned a scholarship. I tore a ligament in my knee. They tried to take the scholarship back. 310th pick of the draft. I was not the golden boy. I was certainly not. But I had the advantage that I'd overcome, and I understood what overcoming was, and I believed I belonged. Now they tried to, circumstances come up. For example, I tore a hole in one of my socks first week of training camp. I went to the equipment manager, asked him for a new pair of socks. He said, "What's the matter with the other sock?" And he only gave me one sock. so yeah, I was at the bottom rung.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity, and I worked hard at it. Coaches saw, and they saw things that I didn't even see in myself. It was a great sign of leadership. Joe Collier was our defensive coordinator at the time. I'd never played linebacker in my life until my 3rd year in the NFL. The Broncos looked at me. Joe looked at me. The defensive line coach, the defensive mind trust, whatever, got together, and they said, we think he's a linebacker. Let's switch him to linebacker. I played 5 games as a linebacker my 3rd year with the Broncos. The 6th was in the Pro Bowl as an All-Pro linebacker. That's where I belonged, and I didn't know it, but the leadership knew it, and to me that was huge. Joe just passed, and they had a service for him, and a lot of the older guys came, and he was special to so many people and made a difference in so many people's lives, and it was huge to just fall into that opportunity, and I was ready. I was prepared.
So homework for the audience too is to check out Karl Mecklenberg's greatest hits. It sounds like you're a musician, or just Google YouTube, because I was fortunate to see you in person when you give a talk. We get to see you, hitting people from all angles, and it gets you fired up. But, Karl, I became an entrepreneur recently. I was in tech sales for 10 years, and it's 4 months in, and I went all in on this podcast, amplifying inspiration of leaders like yourself. As you know, I'm working to build a speaking business to follow in your footsteps, and working on a few other things. And let's be real, I've experienced moments of self-doubt, imposter syndrome for sure. And my vision is big, and I know I'm going to get there when I see people like you who are just so unshakably faithful, and especially if I can apply the principles that we're going to continue to dive into. But it's funny, I spoke to someone at the National Speakers Association, and he's a good speaker that you might know, and I won't mention his name, but I was like, "Did you ever get nervous?" And he said no, and he's got a pretty big ego. And so I'll acknowledge there are some people like that who maybe they didn't experience self-doubt, but I think the typical case is we do. And so on your journey, even though you knew you would get there, was there a moment of self-doubt, and maybe there were different ones that you experienced that you might actually viscerally remember? And do you recall how you spoke to yourself? And if you can't remember a specific moment, maybe just at a high level, like how you spoke to yourself in those.
Yeah, no, I remember a lot of those. That's not uncommon. I've had 18 football related surgeries. I only missed 7 games in my career, so I would get them in the off season, and I would, hope that I could come back and be a part of the team again. And every situation, you don't know. I mean, you go in and there's so many different outcomes that can come from a surgery, but you do what you can do. And that, to me, that was the thing. When I was unable to practice, unable to get back in shape, I was in the weight room. I was talking to the young guys. I was, pumping them up, making connections, doing the things that I was capable of. Right. And as I got better, then things came back to the field, and I had to trust myself. Okay, I know how to do this. Go out there and do it, and trust that the doctors did what they're supposed to do, and hope I don't get hurt again. And it's you're going to get knocked down in life. You're going to think, oh man, this sale is done, and then all of a sudden, boom. All of a sudden the budget changes, or somebody else looks at it, and somebody else talks to them and changes their mind, and that regroup, continue that connection, because down the line, when they need to buy something again, they're gonna remember you, because you decided to keep the connection. You didn't just cut them off as soon as they said no. So yeah, it's a step by step thing, and it's not easy. I played in 3 Super Bowls. The Broncos lost by more than anybody's ever lost Super Bowls over and over and over again. And I remember that first loss, waking up the next morning feeling like the sun wasn't going to come up.
Oof.
It was, I worked and struggled and fought my whole life to get to this point, and then to fall flat on your face. And when you're in that point, at that position, and with that opportunity, it's just devastating. But the sun did come up. Some guys retired, some new guys got added, coaches moved on. They were working on the next year a week later, and it was time to get ready for the next season. So it's those downtimes are tough, but the sun will come up.
Yeah. I heard someone say something like the valley doesn't last forever. And it's helpful to hear that when knocked down, you controlled what you could. You were injured, and in fact, there was a risk, would you be able to come back? But you were edifying younger teammates and making connections, investing in relationships, helping others succeed. You were hitting the weights and controlling exactly what you could. And what a powerful response. And then when you experience a devastating loss, you just hung in there and kept showing up, and knew that and I'm not sure if I'm using the exact metaphor, but the sun would rise again and you'd have more opportunities. It seems like you reset. And another thing I wanted to ask you, that it ties into the theme of resilience, and you've already given us so much insight on this topic, is you had a ton of injuries and surgeries. And then Elway, I didn't realize that he had a screwed up knee his whole career, and you both showed up anyways. And so many of us in our day-to-day, we could have physical injuries. We could feel mentally and emotionally in a bad place. Someone could be going through a depression, and those things can get serious. But what are some keys to showing up anyways when you don't feel like it? Because I feel like those are some of the greatest quiet victories that others might not know about. And it might be, Karl, that your vision is so strong and your faith, but I'm just curious to get your perspective on that.
Yeah. I pretty early on understood what my passions, my missions in life were. And I think if you have a real grasp on those things, it's much easier to set goals and move forward and reset when things don't go well. My desire, my passion, my mission for a long time was to be the greatest football player that ever played the game. That was the target. Right. And when I found myself making decisions, am I going to work today? Am I going to study? Am I going to go out partying with the guys? Whatever. I would focus on that and move back towards that. No, I'm going to turn 65 years old in a couple of years. I'm not Tom Brady. I can't still play. I have other issues, other desires, passions, missions in my life. As a husband and a father, I want to give unconditional, uncompromising love to my family. That's one of my desires, my passions. As a Christian, I want everything I say and do to reflect God's love. Another passion. As a speaker and an author, I want to inspire long-term positive change. So I know what the ultimate targets are, and when I find myself drifting away from those, then I can set goals back towards them. That desire, that passion, that mission, that's an extravagant, long-term kind of general thing, where the goals are reasonable, short-term, specific steps. I'm gonna make 3 calls today to connect with somebody who I need to talk for, or there's a number of ways you start pushing back to where you want to get to, and it's the key is that target. Is it an extravagant thing? I mean, I saw unbelievably gifted kids come to training camp every year. They'd invite 110 guys to training camp. 5 weeks later, 50 of them make the team. Over half of them get sent home. So what's the difference? Because they're all talented. They've got scouts that scour the country and find you if they think you can help the team. You come to training camp. The difference is that desire. Is it? I want to get invited to an NFL training camp, or is it I want to be the greatest player that ever played the game? That difference is the difference between making the team or not making the team. That difference is the difference between getting through a rough patch with your family and getting a divorce. That difference is the difference between being the top seller and just another one of the guys.
So, Karl, I love how you've tailored this to our audience of sellers, and to the audience, guys, whether if you're a seller in big tech, because we've got some of you out at Google and Databricks and Dell, and then also people at great startups, consider, putting in a word to your leadership about Karl coming in to speak to your team, because these principles really apply to sales. We're just a bunch of corporate athletes that need to execute. We need to have big visions. I think back, Karl, to when I started at Oracle, a great tech company, and they had the class of training, a cohort of 100 plus SDRs, sales development, entry-level sellers that would go through training for a certain amount of months. And it's just like entering into training camp. And maybe some people, their vision, like you said, was just to get to make it there and okay, we made it. Others, they want to be the greatest seller at the company, and the vision makes all the difference. So it's so cool to hear that your vision was to be the greatest of all time, and look at where you ended up, in the Denver Broncos Hall of Fame, the Colorado Hall of Fame, known to be the most versatile player in the NFL at your time. And I think it just seems like what I'm learning from you is to shoot for, what is it? Shoot. I mean, it's shoot for the stars, end up, or is it the moon, end up with the stars? It's like, just guys, let's dream big. Let's be a little irrational and unreasonable, because that's what's going to get us to maximize our full potential.
Yeah. If you're not consciously making decisions to be great, it doesn't happen by accident. I'm sorry. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's decision making. It's day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour. This is the right thing to do. I'm doing that.
Yeah, and you're making me think of, just to translate to day to day decision making. Lately, it's hit me. I need to get up earlier, so I'm not in a state of reacting. And I'm sure you get up pretty early? That's just one example where if I want to reach my full potential, I know personally Chris Bussing needs to get up earlier to be proactive. But how early do you get up, Karl?
How early? You know what? To me, it's not necessarily how early you get up, because it depends on the day.
Yeah.
But I like to run in the morning. I take my dog and go for a run. I could do the Bible study. I do some calls. I mean, I've got this pattern of things that I go through. I'm up around 6:30 oftentimes, 6:30, and off we go. The sun has to come up. The gate at the park.
And so that's it. For me, that's the winning time. Now, I do realize I don't want to glorify like, oh, we need to get up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. I actually am not a believer in that. But I noticed recently, and I had to check in with my North Star, and it's not horrible, but sleeping until 8 a.m. I'm like, shoot, that's an hour and a half right there. So it's but the key, the take home point is when you align with your vision, and it's big, it's your North Star, and you know what you need to do every day to get there. Now, here's an interesting thought that I want to get your perspective on. Did you ever look at, because I went through this exercise recently in my personal experience, but figuring out the cost of inaction. Like if I don't give it my all and play all out, I'm going to end up, I came up with this statement recently. I'm going to be an ashamed shell of a man, playing small, leaving millions on the table. I came up with this statement, Karl, of like where I could go and where things could devolve if I don't take action and play all out. Did you ever do something like that?
Not necessarily exactly like that, but one of my keys to success is honesty and forgiveness. And when things aren't going the way you want them to go, more often than not, there's something you can change in your own behavior and your own inactivity and whatever it is. That piece, that honesty and forgiveness piece, is probably the most difficult one to deal with. The one most people fall down on, is being honest with themselves and saying, how can I change? What can, you know, my kids aren't acting the way I expect them to. What, you know, do you blame it on the kids, or is that something you can change as a parent? You know, I'm not making the sales that I should be making. Is that something to do with my presentation? Is that something to do with me just getting the numbers up by getting up earlier in the morning? Is that something to do with you know, with the product, the way I'm presenting it? Whatever it is, you got to be honest with yourself and make changes. Be honest and forgiving. Redirect, set some goals back to that desire, that passion, that mission. So yeah, there's a constant reevaluation. In the NFL, they film everything. They film every game from 2 different angles. They film every practice, and now they even film meetings. So theoretically, you can sit in a meeting watching film of yourself practicing, and everything is evaluated, everything is graded, and I grew up with that. I mean, that was honesty and forgiveness for me. There's no hiding. The eye in the sky don't lie, is what they say in the NFL, because everything is on film and everything is evaluated.
It's so important to evaluate ourselves. And in sales, we have an opportunity to do that with technologies like Gong, where you can do call recordings and you can rewatch the game tape. And ultimately, what I'm getting from you is you got to forgive yourself when you fail, and have some self-compassion rather than just self-flagellate. But you got to look honestly in the mirror, look honestly at the game tape, and figure out what changes can I make within my control to get better results. And it seems like, and I loved your talk in person. It was so awesome. But ownership is a foundation of you becoming great and actually creating the dream that you, in realizing it. So, yeah, that seems to be just very clear in everything you're sharing. And is there anything else you'd add? You've already hit on it, but around the concept of ownership and responsibility, extreme responsibility. And maybe even there's like another example when you were watching game tape and you're like, okay, you know, that was me. Like anything else you'd add around this theme?
Okay. Yeah. One of my early games when they switched me to linebacker, we went to the film. I'm trying to think of who we were playing. I think we were playing Philadelphia. We're playing Philadelphia. I didn't use my hands right all game long. I was not controlling the offensive lineman. I wasn't getting off of blocks, and the coach made that very clear during film study. And so I set a goal that I was going to have perfect hand placement all week in practice. Had great hands all week in practice, worked on that all week. And then the next week we're playing Kansas City. I ended up, with 4 sacks and was defensive player of the week in the NFL, and had a great game, and went on from there. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have just insane adjustments that way or results that way, but the concept is there. It's okay. I didn't do this right. What do I change? How can I be? And from a team standpoint, it's similar. I've seen failures on teams that people weren't honest with, and weren't able to move forward, and whole businesses have failed because of that mistake, that lack of honesty and forgiveness. And then I've seen people almost go out of their way to try and find one little thing that they could adjust and change. I was able to watch a rocket launch one time, and 3 companies had worked on this. It was the spaceship that ultimately is going to go to Mars, but United Launch Alliance, NASA, and I can't think of the third company, but anyway, 3 companies were working on this. And all 3 of them had worked on it for 9 years. And the first attempt that morning was just horrible. Everything fell apart. They had to shut it down. They had to go back and reassess what was going on. And each company changed something. instead of just blaming the one company because a Russian trawler came in and was spying. They didn't blame NASA. They found things they could change, and you can do that. I mean, look, there's progress is always change. If you're going to take a step forward as an individual, as a corporate group, it doesn't happen without change. And change is hard. Nobody likes change, but progress is always change. So find something you can tweak and take another step forward.
Karl, you got me fired up when you gave your talk, because you talked to all of us about having the courage to try new things, take risks. So, and I remember some of your stories, so I got to ask you about your story, if you're open to sharing it, of that first talk you gave. That was a good one. Are you willing to share that one?
Sure. Yeah. I was a rookie. This is 1983, and the Broncos made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. It had been, I believe, 6-7 years since they'd made the playoffs, and the fans were upset. They wanted to get back to the playoffs, so we made the playoffs, and people were so excited. There's people painting their houses orange. There's a whole generation of children named John Elway Wilson or John Elway Smith, and the Museum of Natural History asked the Broncos to have a couple guys come down and speak at a pep rally. And I'd never done anything like that before in my life, but I'd done a lot of new things that year. So I figured, I'll give it a shot. So I go down there. It was me and Sammy Winder, and I got there late. I didn't know the town yet. And there's all these one-way streets down by the Museum of Natural History. So I got there a little late. And as I walked in, the lady in charge of the pep rally and Sammy were already headed to where this thing was supposed to be held. And I caught up with Sammy and asked him what was going to happen. And Sammy explained it to me like this. He said, first, I'll get up. I'll talk about the offense. Then you get up, you talk about the defense. And then this lady here, she's going to hand us a Seahawk. We're playing the Seattle Seahawks. She's going to hand us a Seahawk, and we're supposed to tear it up. I figured I could do that. And it wasn't a very big crowd when we got to the room. It was maybe 35, 40 people, but they all had their Bronco stuff on. And thank you for wearing your orange today, Chris. Had their Bronco stuff on. And so it was a great group to give the speech to. And Sammy got up and did a great job. He talked about how Elway was going to throw it and how many yards he was going to get running the ball and how many points we're going to score. And the fans are getting excited.
Let's go.
Yeah, right. And I'm back in the side of the stage sweating, right? It's hard to get up and speak. I'd never done it before, but I got up anyway. And I talked about how Louis Wright and Steve Foley were going to intercept the ball, and Randy Gradishire and Tom Jackson tackle their running backs, and myself and Rulon Jones sacked the quarterback, and fans are all excited. And then it's time for the Seahawk. And then the lady takes this bird, it's a taxidermied bird, and hands it to Sammy. And Sammy holds it up over his head and says, Karl, you're the defensive player. You tear it up and give me this thing. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to a Museum of Natural History, or maybe you've seen that movie Night at the Museum. These things are all pretty similar. Well, the one in the movie is a lot like the one in Denver. But they've got these diorama, right? It's a glass enclosure, and inside of there's a featured animal and the whole environment that animal lives in, right down to the ants and the grasshoppers and the grass and the brush. Everything's very lifelike. Well, this bird wasn't anything like that. This bird's wings were pinned to its side. It had feathers sticking out. It felt kind of crunchy in my hands. I didn't know they needed this thing. So I held it up to this side of the room and said, this is what we're going to do to the Seahawks. I grew up in Minnesota. In Minnesota, if someone says tear it up, they mean just tear it up, right? Sammy's from Mississippi. I found out later in Mississippi slang, tear it up can mean like tear up the town, tear up the dance floor, wrestle. I ripped this bird in half.
Oh my
Feathers
God.
are flying. I throw a half with no head attached to the ground. I tore the head off the other half. I threw it out in the crowd. The crowd's going crazy. I'm thinking, I love public speaking. This is for me. And then I saw the lady in charge of the thing. She had her head in her hands. She couldn't believe what I'd just done. The Seahawk was actually an osprey, part of an ongoing study of the osprey species where they collected one every year.
Wow.
The crunchy osprey that was spread on the ground in front of me had been collected in 1910. I got hate mail from the Audubon Society my parents read about it in USA Today. That was an
No
interesting phone
way.
call from my mom.
USA Today.
Even the scene of the crime, they're saying, whoever caught the head of the Seahawk, please bring it back. You'll get free passes to the IMAX theater.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's the courage to try new things, even though they might go terribly wrong. And that's the challenge, because as an adult, as a salesperson, as a husband, as a community member, you have tried to help and try to do things, made a change, and it's gone wrong. Progress is always change. Success is overcoming obstacles on the way to your dreams. If you're going to overcome obstacles, if you're going to move forward, if you're going to move towards those desires, those passions, those missions, the only way it happens is having the courage to try new things. Now, the other side of that coin is I never played linebacker in my life till my third year in the NFL. And then I made the Pro Bowl that year as an all-pro linebacker. I believe God's given each and every one of us more possibilities, more potential than we can use in a lifetime. But along with that, he's given us free will. That means it's up to us to have the courage to try new things. So yeah, things go wrong sometimes. You'll get over it.
God has given us more potential possibilities than we could ever dream up of. It's beyond our limited understanding. But the key to realize that is he's given us free will, where we need to step into the opportunity. We need to take risks and have courage, and courage only exists in the presence of fear when we try new things. And we need to be willing to fail and look dumb. And I mean, what a man, you ended up in USA Today, and Mom was calling you about it. And oh gosh, but now look at you, man, inspiring long-term positive change as a full-time speaker, realizing this vision. And imagine if you let that discourage you and stop you.
Right.
Because some people would be so devastated and ashamed that they might never try again. I talked to a buddy who's doing stand-up comedy, and he's experienced bombing where he was so like basically horrible, no one laughed, and he had to sit and sulk a bit in shame. It didn't feel good, but he kept going. But Karl, I heard a story through someone in my network of a girl that wanted to like start a Sephora YouTube channel, and that YouTube, that you could make a whole channel on makeup videos and things. And
right.
She released a video and she got some negative comments, and then decided to never post again. And so the thing is, I want to acknowledge you that you kept going, because we have in those moments of embarrassment and shame, we have a choice whether we pick ourselves up and keep going, or we could actually let it stop us from reaching our potential.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's other lessons learned there. It's okay. If I'm there and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, don't ask Sammy. That's the lady in charge.
Yeah. Oh.
What are we doing here? How, what's my role? What's the expectations? I mean, I don't go into a speaking engagement without having a real firm grasp on those things.
Yes.
And it was a rookie mistake, and yeah, things happen.
Look how it shaped you too, because something that stood out to me when you spoke, and even when I look at your profile on LinkedIn, is that you are very tailored to your audiences, and you go above and beyond to do that and understand their world. So in a way, I wonder if it made you hypersensitive to getting full context, and like which is a big positive. So it shaped you to make you great on this path.
Right. Yeah. Again, success is overcoming obstacles. That's what it is. And if you know somebody who nothing's gone wrong for, and they've never pushed up against obstacles, I'll tell you what, they're not pushing hard enough. You should run into obstacles. There should be challenges. There should be mistakes. That's how you get better.
Yes. And so you mentioned, I love the Elway story. You illustrated what a leader does. He connects with his people, and he has humility. And it's funny, I was doing research even beyond seeing your talk, and I saw one of your speaker reels, and I did catch a moment of you talking about leaders versus egos. And so I just wanted to maybe get your perspective on the leaders versus egos, because we all have an ego. Sometimes my ego flares up a bit. But I know that especially people who want to be leaders, if their ego gets the best of them, it's going to disconnect them from their people. But yeah, I don't want to project my own thinking. I'd love to hear your thoughts on egos versus leaders.
Yeah. a team is like a teeter-totter or seesaw. On one side, you got leaders. They think long-term. They think we instead of me. They put the team passion, the team mission first.
Yeah.
On the other side, I got to get there we go. On the other side, you got the egos. They think short term. Where's my money? How little can I do today and still keep this job? And the rest of the team's in the middle, and they're uncommitted. They can go either way. So by adding or subtracting an ego or a leader, you tip that teeter totter one way or the other. The middle group slides that way, and you've got momentum towards success, or you've got momentum towards failure. That's how it happens in the NFL. That's how it happens in my family. That's how it happens in your business. That's how it happens. That's how one person can make a huge difference in a large team concept. The question as leaders, and I suppose if you're watching this podcast, you probably vision yourself as a leader. This is, I care about the team passion. I care about the team mission. And leader is not just a title. A leader is an attitude. A leader is, this is what's important. I'm making decisions based on what happens for this team, not personal decisions. So anyway, the people in the middle are really the crux of it all. You convince them, you get to know them, you put them in situations where they can be successful. You mentor them, you bring them over to the leadership side, and you tip that teeter-totter back the way it should be. Yeah. I saw it over and over in the NFL. We had a couple losing seasons in the 12, and it was always, we lost a couple of great leaders, and all of a sudden that teeter-totter goes the other way, and it's really hard to change that momentum without getting these middle people involved.
And you were doing that, empowering leaders even when you were injured. You were going out of your way, I know it, to elevate others and get them to the right side of the teeter-totter.
There you go.
So, hey, how about talking about the courage to be decisive? Because I'm going to, in the description of the video, that like clearly articulate your 6 principles, because what's fun with the podcast, and it's maybe how my brain works, we're dancing around and we're hitting on all of them, but it jumping around to different ones. But I'd like to go to the courage to be decisive and preparing to be decisive. Can you tell us about what this means? I mean, you have great stories. So selfishly, I love hearing your stories, the line of these things, but take it away. We'd love to.
Yeah. The decisiveness piece is what made my career. I run a 4.940. For those of you who don't follow football, that's really slow. that's slow for a defensive lineman. Yeah. So, if I had to run 40 yards, we were in big trouble anyway. So, but I found out early on in my career, if I could take the first step in the right direction before anybody else did, all the angles would change in my favor. The tight end couldn't cut me off. The guard couldn't pin me in. The fullback couldn't keep me from getting to the line of scrimmage. Everything changed. The question is, how can you be decisive? How can you take that first step before anybody else does? And it's preparation. It's going into each situation, having already thought about it. We already talked about this, but that's my morning. It involves thinking about what's going on that day and who I can positively influence and what might come up. It's a habit that's well worth getting into because then you can be decisive when you've already thought about it. And I have some great examples of people who are decisive. There's Peyton Manning comes to mind. I mean, he was unbelievable with that decisiveness piece, and it was all preparation. I mean, the first time I met him was at a golf event. They have these golf events at the Super Bowl, and they bring in greats from the past and the rookies that are coming in that year that are going to be first round draft picks. And this is Peyton's rookie year, or his last year as a college player. And Peyton comes up to me before this thing, and I don't know who Peyton Manning is. I didn't follow college football at the time. But Peyton comes up to me, "Oh, Mr. Mecklenberg, I love what you did for the Broncos. You had over 1,000 tackles, and you were a captain on the team, and you had more sacks than anybody in the history of the team." And then he started talking about my University of Minnesota career. Peyton Manning was 2 years old when I was at the University of Minnesota. He hadn't seen me play. But what he had done is he had gone down to a library. This is before Google. He had gone down to a library, found out what retired players were going to be there ahead of time, and studied up on those players at the library. And so he came in and with all this knowledge. And because of that, I mean, that was his approach to life, his preparation. And if you see him on television now, or if you saw him as a player uh, in his pro career, that decisiveness was there over and over and over again. It would just stood out. I don't know if you got to see his retirement speech, but he went back to it at least 5 times. No one's going to out prepare me. That was his thing, and he was an awesome leader because he was prepared. Other people could rely on him to make the right decisions and make the right calls and make the right adjustments and all the things the quarterback has to do. And it was all based on decisiveness. I don't know if you've ever seen him run, but he didn't make it because he was a great athlete. He made it because he was an unbelievably decisive leader.
Gosh, this is so good. I have so many things I want to share in response to this, because I was just listening to a book that talked about Lionel Messi, the greatest soccer player of all time, and some call him lazy at certain moments, where he just seems like he's looking around, but it's actually he's strategically conserving energy and making that right first move. He's like very decisive because he has prepared, like you're mentioning, and he's able to make the right move efficiently that gets the result. And Warren Buffett, considered the Oracle of Omaha. I feel like he does less moves because the book talked about him too, but he's very decisive. And I do believe it comes through his preparation. And remember at NSA, did you hear Ty Bennett give his speech?
Yeah, sure.
And it's just success leaves clues, because he's a great keynote speaker like yourself, and you're both saying preparation is the cornerstone of everything. So for our audience, they're when they're on the field and it's game time, it's in a cold call. I call you and interrupt your day, and I need to open the conversation effectively and deal with objections, and things could go wrong. But by practice,
do you do your homework? Did you go on LinkedIn, figure out what their hobbies are, what their interests are, what their company is doing? If you got to lead with knowledge. There's no question. And the other piece that I don't dwell on a lot, but is very real, is fear of failure. If you're afraid of failing, then it's very difficult to be decisive. If you overthink it, eventually the hay's in the barn. You got to go. I approached my football career that way. I would prepare and I would work and I would study, but eventually that ball is snapped and you just got to go. You got to trust yourself. You can't have that fear of failure, and the fear of failure will get you every time.
I love that you added that in there as you prepare, but then there's a moment where you need to trust. And I just wanted to get in that real quick. And we have a little under 10 minutes, so I'll make sure we land the plane in the conversation. But man, has it been great. Thank you so much for generously sharing your stories and your insight. This is too fun. So maybe we could talk about this piece of you prepare, and then you trust. And I'll just share a quick anecdote. I was proud to get a job at Google Cloud. And for me as a millennial, I was all excited about Google and having that brand name. And maybe that's my equivalent of playing for the Broncos. So a seller at Google Cloud. And I had my final round interview. I was flown out to Austin, Texas, put in the 4 seasons. I'd been preparing last minute. And but I was starting to over prepare, and suddenly I got sick and I felt like my mind was going fuzzy, and I'm like, I'm going to botch this and fail. And in fact, looking back, I think it was allergies, but I felt like literally sick. And what's crazy is that ended up being the best thing for me, because I had a moment when I just decided, you know what, God, I'm going to surrender and trust in my preparation. I'm going to cut my brain off and stop overanalyzing. And then I was able to just be present and show up, and it went well, and I got the result. And so in that moment of, I think if I over prepared and overanalyzed, I might've been stuck in my head and not fully, present and at my best. And
Sure.
So what is the point where, or just like, can you share your perspective on that nuanced point where you actually let go and surrender, where you've prepared enough, and how do you speak to yourself mentally in that moment?
Well, it's easy in football, because when the Star Spangled Banner is over,
Okay, yeah,
then it's time to go.
yeah. And so maybe we as sellers, we should get our own, play the Star Spangled Banner or our own song,
Right. But I mean, there you've got to establish that, as soon as you pick up the phone. All right, The preparation's over. Now it's time to be present. Now it's time to acknowledge this person that I'm on the line with, and do whatever I can to make their day better, to make their help them in their business, because that's what a salesman does. A salesman is giving somebody an opportunity to get better themselves. This is a tool that I need. This is an answer that I'm looking for. So it's your job to find out what that is, and reach out to those people.
Yeah, to shift to being present and ultimately being curious and giving our best in looking to serve. So I love how you're able to tailor to our world in sales. Okay, and now dedication is really important. And I think you've embodied that in this conversation. Again, we've already hit on so much, but I just wanted to hit on the dedication principle one more time to see if there's anything else you would add to show what does this really mean? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's the dedication piece is pretty simple. It's hard work, constant learning, refusing to quit. It's running into obstacles and finding a way around them, finding a way through them, struggling some, and figuring out a way to get better. And any team activity, where you can be a leader from that standpoint of that dedication piece, it gives you such a leg up in relationships when people see that things have gone wrong, but he's still digging in and he's still trying to figure out a way. I mean, there were games where we were behind 25 points, whatever, and I'm still out there doing my job. I'm dedicated to the craft. I'm going to do whatever I can to help this team, and whether it's just not lose by as much.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot, Karl. That regardless of your external circumstances, you're committed to giving it your all, and people are counting on you. So that's a good insight there. Like, some people, if they're losing, they might just be a baby about it and give up and say, and I'll admit there have been points in my life, and maybe in an amateur competition, where I'm just getting destroyed. I'm like, screw it. And I let off the gas. But it sounds like, to be the person who still has the pedal to the metal and goes all out, even when you're in a sinking ship and you're losing, and You're just literally trying to lose by less. That is powerful. Imagine if we all operated that way.
Well, yeah, then it's a lot easier to not step off the gas when there's still a possibility. You don't know what's going to happen. Strange things happen, and particularly, well, whether it's a sales situation or whether it's a football situation, they're similar. A sales situation, maybe your company's not doing really well and somebody's going to buy them out or whatever, and you don't know what your future is. But if you have those relationships you've made with the people you've sold to, and they're positive relationships, there's great value there. That it's the same in football. Even if your team is done with you, somebody else has played against you and knows that you're not going to ever let off the gas, they're going to hire you. So there's all kinds of examples of where there's huge value, even when things aren't going the way you expect them to have that dedication.
Yes. And I think of a sales scenario. I heard a story of a seller who had an account that the past seller said, there's nothing there. They spent a little with us, but there's no upside. They're not worth it. And he still gave them everything he had. He did what you said. He did his homework. He brought a personal touch. He took them to lunch, probably dinner, and invested in them like they were a big, high potential account. It's similar to maybe giving it your all in a losing battle when you're in a game where you don't think you have any shot. And so he gave it his all, even though there's no sign that there'd be anything that come from the account. What do you know? End of year, he gets a call from the C-level saying, "Hey, in a week, let's talk. We got some good news for you. You're gonna like to hear." It turns out a week later, they acquired a company and needed to purchase maybe a couple $100,000 to $400,000 in software. A nice size deal that came from that account, and it was because. Yeah, and the C-level called him because he had offered that relationship. So it's unpredictable, like you said, the value that can come from going all out. even when like there's no indication that success is going to come.
And when I played my senior year at the University of Minnesota, we were 3-8. We won our first 3 games.
No way.
We lost our last 8.
Oh,
and we lost to Northwestern. Now Northwestern hadn't won a Big Ten game in 10 years, and they beat us. And I had a good game, and I played against a guy named Chris Hinton. Chris Hinton was the Broncos' first pick of the 1983 draft. He's the guy they traded for John Elway. But when they watched Chris Hinton's film, they saw me because I was eating him up, and they drafted me because of what I had done in that game, even though we were a terrible team because we had so many injuries and stuff. So all of a sudden, because I had that drive that I was going to give my best in every situation, it gave me the opportunity to come to Denver, and things took off.
May we set a big vision and give our best regardless of the circumstances, be dedicated, have the courage to try new things, be able to, forgive ourselves and take inventory along the journey. Oh man. And it I realize I'm probably not capturing every principle, which I'm trying to. So honesty and forgiveness, obviously, be a team player, be a leader, and not be the person that has the ego, but
that desire, that passion, that mission.
So Karl, can you share like one more time that line about like God, because it's powerful of like, he has a possibility for us. That's, you know what I'm saying? That line.
God's given us more potential than we can use in a lifetime. But along with that, he's given us free will. We need to decide that it's important. We need to step up when it's time to step up. And it's up to us, despite the talent's there. Talent is common. People who have dedication and work at that talent, that's valuable. People that are great leaders and are dedicated and have that talent are the best. So those are decisions you make. The talent's there. You got to find it. And the only way that happens is through having the courage to try new things, stepping outside of your comfort zone, and going for it. So for me, it's this business as a speaker is awesome because I'm in so many different situations. Whether I'm speaking for salespeople, or next week I'm going to the Kentucky the Electrical Contractors Association.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm all over the country. I'm all over different industries, and it's a blast because then I get to use my concepts, how I ask other people to work. I work in that same way for these people, and it's a blast. I'm a performer. I don't get hurt doing this, but I get the adrenaline, right? I get that excitement. I get to perform at a high level for a short period of time. I evaluate what went on. I throw out what didn't go well. I repeat what did go well, and get ready for the next presentation. So it's fun.
It's so cool that you were at the peak as an NFL player, and now you found another mountain to climb, and where you do get to perform. And that's what excites me about this path. And I love your heart, your authenticity, your mission to impact positive, lasting change in people. And so just to finish up, I want to make sure the audience can connect with you. I can link your LinkedIn profile, perhaps link your website. And I'd just like to understand who might be able to leverage you to come speak, and just maybe end with that. And then we can tie a bow on the conversation.
Yeah, sure. I speak across industries. I'm not niched. The people that niche are niching so they can develop name recognition. I already got name recognition when I got into this.
Yeah,
but it's fun. I think to separate what I do from what a lot of other celebrity type speakers do is I spend time with your people. I'll come in early. I'll stay late. I go to the cocktail event. I play golf with you. I do whatever you ask me to do. And I want to be there, not only as a hired speaker, come in, the limo to the room and the green room, and then the limo away. It's an event. I want to know your people. I want to know who you are, and through that, I can give a better speech.
Karl, that was my experience. Before your talk, we had a personal conversation. You were curious about me. Afterwards, we got a nice photo together, and I just felt that personal touch. And so I can affirm it firsthand. But thank you for your generosity and coming on, inspiring us with your stories. I'm fired up. And to the audience, guys, all you got to do is rewatch the game tape here. Maybe once, maybe twice. I do it 3 times. Take some notes and translate this into action. Be courageous, try new things, and set a big vision, and take massive action, be dedicated, and forgive yourself along the way. Karl, I look forward to continuing to build our relationship and having you on again in the future. And to the audience, to your success in tech sales, in business, in your personal life, and in life in general, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.